Say yes to new beginnings.
Yes.
Say yes to new standards of excellence.
Yes.
Say yes to engaging reportage with a difference.
Yes.
Introducing Yes International Magazine.
Now, back then, considering the caliber, of people that you were taking on or that you were writing about, were you scared that, anything could go wrong, or was there any time you felt threatened, that, hey, these people may come after me and stuff like that?
Yeah, at a point I felt threatened every day. When I was in Climax magazine, we were talking about sex, a lot of sex, relationships, and all of that. But when I left Climax magazine, I created myself and fashioned after the news of the world. I decided to veer into crime, political crime, all sorts of crime. That was when I knew that it wasn't an easy thing. The day they raided my office, I was not there, thank God. And like I said, I had to be taking bullion van home. I couldn't breathe in those bullion vans. I'll have to put my nose in one small hole, for me to even get some air. That was when I knew it was real. And
how did you cope in those days? How did you cope? The fear, that anything could go wrong. How did you cope?
I just didn't think anybody attacked me, but I felt that I was, when you are youthful, you feel there's an invisible shield around you. I just felt there was something around me protecting me. I won't say they're evil people, they were bad people at that time to me, So, and I was always watching my back, I chose where I went to. If you remember, I stopped going to parties and all of that. Chose where I went out, chose where I would be. I was mostly always at work or at home. And when I was in City News, my office was a bunker. I was underground, most of the time. So somehow God protected me. But this time, no. In this day and time, I don't think I would have done that.
Okay, because I was going to ask whether you mind replicating some of those things you did back then, but you've already answered that question. Now, you've told us about the most memorable story that you did or you anchored or you wrote back then. Which was the most memorable interview, or which is or was? It depends on you. Which has been the most memorable interview that you have done and why?
The reporter, mostly.
Okay.
So I would.
The few interviews that you've done, can you recollect the one that still sticks in your memory and why? Can you remember any?
Let me see. It's been such a long time. I was interviewing a lot of celebrities back then. I really didn't. I would say I interviewed who? Yes, maybe. I did a lot of interviews. I can't remember anyone that. All I remember is editing and doing the background investigations, because that was investigative journalism that became my turf.
Okay. Now, what makes a good story? With the benefit of hindsight and considering your experience in the profession, what makes a good story?
Story is that story, number one, that interests a larger number of people, mass media, mass number of people, a story that is credible, that you can stand by at any time, a story that answers all the questions. Again, you answer all the questions. That means you must have done all your investigations. And a story that balances its copy, that is balanced, objectively give the other person right of reply. That is a good story.
All right. So what makes a good interview? I know you would have read a whole lot of dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of interviews. What makes a good interview?
There are different kinds of interviews. It depends on what you are interviewing for. The you must be able to research your subject before you get to your point of that interview, and you try to be impromptu. I think that's what really makes a good interview. And when you can ask a lot, if you, of course, if you research, you can ask follow-up questions, really where you get your headlines.
Okay.
So I think I don't like the ambush journalism where a guest refuses and you try to force that guest to respond. That's not good journalism.
Okay.
Good journalism is taking the question from different angles, a response, or if you do not get a response, of course, you leave it hanging. And everybody out there is watching, knows that you have cornered this person. You don't have to make it so obvious and make your guests so uncomfortable.
All right. So what is your take on the current state of the media profession? I mean, considering the coming of the internet or the social media, what is your take on that new wave of journalism? Let me put it that way.
The internet has made it more boisterous. I wish it had made it more boisterous, easier, because now the world is like a small village. You can pick a call, you can do a phone interview. You and I were talking now. So it's just more dynamic, more broad, and the only problem is that it's not defined. We have not been able to, or the world has not been able to define what is journalism on the internet and what is not, especially here in Nigeria. Because in Nigeria here, every blogger says he's a journalist, or everybody thinks a blogger is a journalist, or every blog writes news. A blog is not supposed to do news. A blog is supposed to do area of interest. For example, I love gardening. I have a blog on gardening. I have a blog on singing. I have a blog on sex or anything. That is how it should be. But here in Nigeria, we now, everything is just mixed up. So we journalists, we find sometimes ourselves defending ourselves, defending our profession. And that is the only downside. But otherwise, it's much more boisterous. Nobody goes lining up the vendors' booths anymore. You just open your phone and you get all the news.